When it comes to fishing off the coast of mainland Britain, this tiny port on the north coast of Scotland is something particularly special. In bad weather conditions, a particularly inhospitable place to be, yet home to vast quantities of cod, ling and pollock, and some of the biggest and hardest fighting fish on the planet. Yet few English anglers could pinpoint Scrabster on a map, and even less will have ever fished here.
Just beyond the harbour wall here lies one of the most notorious stretches of water in the Northern Hemisphere, the Pentland Firth. A place where tide runs of 16 knots have been recorded, as twice daily the North Atlantic forces its way through the gap between Caithness and Orkney into the North Sea and back again. The harbour itself is tucked into the northwest corner of Thurso Bay, the other extremity of which is Dunnet Head.
In the background, this is Dunnet Head, UK mainland's most northerly point.
These deep cold waters are home not only to some of the biggest fish in the UK, but also in the world. The current IGFA all-tackle porbeagle record of £507 and the UK halibut record of £234 were both taken around Dunnet Head. That shark record, along with some IGFA line class records, was taken aboard Karen, the boat we are fishing on here today. But I have to say, it's the quality of the inshore open ground fishing that attracts most visiting anglers to Scrabster, and understandably so. The party aboard Karen for this trip hailed from Newcastle, and in their opinion, the fishing was head and shoulders above anything else they've experienced anywhere else in the country, including visits to the south coast and Ireland. This film was shot during September, when ling, cod and pollock are the main target species. If it's the thoughts of big sharks that turn you on, then the time to be making your trip is any time between October and March.
It's a pollock.
Having said this, something was continually pushing clouds of panicking mackerel up to the surface all around the boat while we were fishing. Shortly afterwards, a large dark shape was spotted close to some of the mackerel activity. So a makeshift shark outfit was quickly put together, though the culprit unfortunately wasn't having any of it. Our trip coincided with the biggest set of spring tide in over 25 years, on paper at least, not the ideal time to be bottom fishing in the Pentland Firth. But in reality, not a problem at all, with £1 to £1.25 pounds of lead being sufficient to keep the baits in the feeding zone, though light winds certainly played their part too in all of this by not pushing the boat along too quickly. Another pleasant surprise was the low incidence of tackle losses, particularly off Holborn Head, where good numbers of fish were hauled up. The bottom around Dunnet Head was considerably more tackle hungry. Eddie McCarthy here even managed to get down with a small lead head on a fly rod.
Yeah, I've got a jelly deal on the end of my fly line, and I'm just slowly bringing it from the bottom. Hopefully the pollock can get a hold of it. Where it was, it's now just seems to be coming up there now. Oh, there it is, it's kicking again. There it is. You got the net shark, it's just with it's been on the fly rod. Can I pull this up? Thank you very much. Nice fish to play with. Look, pollock.
As can be seen clearly from the close proximity of the cliffs, short sailing times, plenty of potential shelter, and of course lots of fish add much to Scrabster's popularity.
Good. 13-10. It's only a mackerel, you know. It's making it look good. Anyone else? When have I got you as well?
Who's going to get into that?
Aye.
Where you get that one on?
Daylights.
The person best placed to offer advice to potential visitors is obviously the skipper. So Dave, as it is a fairly remote and potentially bleak corner of Scotland, what in your opinion is it that persuades so many anglers to make the long trek north?
The scenery is unprecedented here and the fishing's rich and diverse. There's a big number of species that you can catch all year round, which aren't available in a lot of the more recognised UK mainland marks. We have cod, ling, pollock all year round.
For most people it's going to be a long journey, so what are the realistic chances of getting afloat at least somewhere if the weather forecast turns out not to be as predicted?
Well, we can never guarantee the weather, but we can usually try and find somewhere that's sheltered.
And what should people not used to this type of fishing be aware of in terms of tackle and tactics?
Basic, simple tackle and muppets, Norwegian perks, white feathers baited will work. If you're targeting pollock, long flowing trays.
What about a few words on the stamp of fish these tactics are likely to produce?
As you know yourself, Phil, when you were out with us, we had 4 double-figure fish to the boat. We do have double-figure ling moving around at the moment, and we're expecting bigger cod to start moving in soon.
Yeah, in the boat, yeah. Standard 13.
Most of the ling, many of the cod and some of the pollock were taken on baited lures fished on short droppers spaced out either above a lead or a baited perk. Hooks spaced out above the lead like this are always less likely to go to ground. A weak link to the lead will also help reduce tackle losses. Fish bait isn't a problem here in the warmer months. In fact, these were some of the biggest and most abundant mackerel I've seen in recent times. You can see first hand here the importance of fish baits for big ling, as his stomach autopsy shows. As was mentioned earlier, the 234-pound halibut record belongs to Dunnet Head, but you don't hear much about these giant flatties these days. Why is that?
Well, they're not actively targeted, but there was one last summer, which came up to a boat, and that was £55.
So there you have it. If large numbers of edible fish caught close to base are what turn you on, the Pentland Firth should be penciled in right at the top of your places to visit list. Alternatively, if you fancy a change from your normal winter routine with a crack at some really big sharks, Scrabster should be put at the top of that list too, particularly bearing in mind that other fish are about on a year-round basis. I did the journey by car from junction 29 of the M6 in Lancashire in a little over 10 hours. If the thought of that puts you off, Wick Airport is less than 30 miles from Scrabster, so you could always hop onto a plane.